Hey, welcome. Welcome to Second Breakfast. Before we start the show at 9 o'clock, I always like to remind everyone what I do first thing every day in the morning. So I thank my higher power for my life. I thank my higher power for my health and for my wealth. And my wealth, I mean my spiritual wealth. Then I pray for others, those that I love, those that I don't. And then I ask for help. I ask for help to learn to love those that I don't. And I ask for help to get through the day. Just today. Just get through today, then I will be ready for tomorrow, but I will just deal with today. One piece at a time until I get through the entire day. After that, I do my Lord's Prayer and my Serenity Prayer, and then I am good to go. So, with that, let us get into the intro, and then we will be right back for the show. Get your blood pumping.
February 7th marked the end of the mandate of the Presidential Transitional Council in Haiti.
Goodness me, I've been talking all this time without the mic on. What's going on? Oh, I know what happened. I switched over to the new. Ah, terribly sorry, folks. Terribly sorry. I just realized there was no audio. Let me do this again. Ah, okay. Serenity now. Almost 5 minutes into the show. Wonderful. 5 minutes of me yapping with nothing. Okay, let's do this again. Welcome to Second Breakfast, a stream of consciousness that fills part of the gap between the nap and the no. I'm off balance now because I didn't have the mic on. Okay. Stream of consciousness that fills the gap between the no answer period, which we call the nap, which we run every day that the lower house sits. When they sit, like yesterday, when they only sat for a part of the time, and Blazing Caffeine Fridays, where we stream at 9 o'clock every Friday, where we do a review, cold read through of Blazing Cat Fur, a site that he's been running in the Greater Toronto area for 20 years this month. And he's very kind enough to support hosting my show there every Friday, which apparently every Friday when I do that show, I have technical issues. I mean, serious technical issues every bloody Friday. So we'll see. We'll see if we have technical issues. Like I just did this morning by not having the bloody mic on for 5 minutes. See if anybody else shows back up on the stream now. Everyone's gone. Wonderful. Well, anyways, we're still streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. So please give us a like, thumbs up, follow, share, and subscribe. Most of all, the chat is up across all 3 platforms. So please feel free to ask anything. Comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. This veteran appreciates your support. Please visit my channel and share. I hope you're already having a wonderful morning and are ready to face the day with hope and love of your fellow man, because it takes a lot of love of your fellow man to sit through the first 5 minutes and wonder where the hell is the sound on this video. Anyways, let's get on with the show and get your blood pumping for the day. We do a flashback to a couple of years ago just to show that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed at all under the Liberal regime. So let us listen to the Brockinator.
With respect, Minister, I know you started off by trying to brief us on your legal knowledge and trying to give us some legal parameters. But with respect, we don't want to hear about your legal opinion. We want to hear about your political responsibility as minister on this extremely important portfolio. Understood?
Listen, sir, I do my job and I have a legal background, and I'm very proud of that, and I want to excuse myself to say for the record that I happen to understand these things perhaps better than others, because
you understood the question.
I'm a lawyer and I used to be
managing ethics. Sir, I got limited time.
Sir.
I will move on.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You've heard the concept of ministerial responsibility, right?
I'm very familiar. I've been Minister of the Crown.
Yeah, the buck stops with you.
I totally, but I would tell you.
You keep talking? No, sir, this is my time to talk. I haven't asked you a question. Okay, you talk about, well, you know, that's not my responsibility, and they're going to be doing this review, or they're going to be making those changes, etc. But ultimately, they report to you, sir. The buck stops with you. And I know that there is a pattern in this Liberal government of ministers not accepting responsibility. I hope you're going to buck that trend and actually show real leadership and actually accept responsibility for this matter, because this matter has essentially been a year old. These whistleblowers come to the Auditor General and complain, not just one whistleblower, up to 20 whistleblowers, consisting of employees, consisting of senior executives. And I know that the SDTC likes to classify them as just troublemakers, but they're not. They received advice to prepare a 300-page informational package and send that off to the Privy Council office. That was done in February. Now, I understand through your evidence, sir, that you received notice that your department received that report in March, correct?
Did you say that you do not have possession of a 300-page whistleblower dossier? Did I hear you right?
The department does. I don't.
Have you read it?
No, I don't have possession of it. The department has.
You haven't. You mean to say that you take this very seriously, but you're willing to take whatever action is necessary. You've repeatedly said you're a lawyer, and you haven't taken the time to review the contents of the 300-page.
Well, I'll tell you very simply, you're a lawyer as well. I'm not the fact finder, I'm the minister.
That you did not review that report yourself?
Mr. Chair, can I answer the question that was like 30 seconds? Because, you know, there was a lot in this, by the way. The buck stopped with me as minister, but I would advise you, you might not be a lawyer, but to read the law that says what are the rights and obligations of the minister under the law, and I would advise you to read the terms and conditions of the contribution agreement.
Oh, believe me, sir, I have.
Because as an arm's-length organization, sir, the minister by law is not allowed to manage human resources. That's how the act was created.
I'm not talking about human resources.
That's how the act was created,
I'm not talking about human resources. I'm talking about the misuse of taxpayer money to the tune of $150 million.
Provide me the evidence of that, sir.
You want evidence? Take a look. Take a look at the three.
Provide me the evidence, because the only evidence that exists
one at a time.
Is the Raymond Chabot.
You want evidence, sir?
If you have evidence, provide it to me, sir.
Minister, just hang on a sec, okay? Let's get one person talking at a time.
You want evidence?
I understand it's emotional. Mr. Brock, you have the floor. You have the floor. Go ahead.
I suggest if you want evidence, you actually show some responsibility and read that 300-page report which listed all of the improper payments that went to companies that did not adhere to the contribution agreement number 9 that you keep referring to, that forms the basis of your legal obligations. I encourage you to do that, sir. Or did you, in fact, just receive a briefing from someone in your department about that 300-page report?
With respect, Chair, how can you say that they don't respect the contract? Have you done the forensic audit? I mean, there's people who have done forensic audit. I'm not sure you have done that, but Raymond Chabot did a forensic audit, sir. And that's not the conclusion they reached. That's what I'm saying. You have to work on the basis of evidence and have due process and procedural fairness, sir, because if you're going to say things like that, sir, I'll tell you something. If you're going to say things like that, you have to make sure that what you say is backed by evidence.
Thank you for that advice. Have you ever contemplated why the Auditor General is actually involved?
Yes, because we've been working with them.
Because they feel that you didn't do your job.
That's not at all. Ask them.
All right?
Ask them,
That's
sir.
exactly what they're saying.
Because we work with them and we welcome their investigation, sir.
People need to be held accountable. People need to be fired. You've done absolutely nothing, despite claiming you're taking this so seriously. You've got your ADM in your own department claiming that you were going to freak out, that changes had to be made, that the board had to be replaced. You did absolutely nothing, sir, between March and October. Did you actually have meetings with your ADM to talk about this issue?
Of course, that is a recurring theme in the Liberal Party, right? Is they will continually talk a great game, but they will do nothing. Now, this is from 2 years ago. He was talking about the SDTC scandal, right? The 5,000 pages of redacted documentation that they gave to the opposition that was not what they requested, that the House later in June of 2024 had to tell the government that they were no longer able to carry on with any House business in the lower house. All bills needed to cease in committee. Nothing could pass until this information request was provided. And, well, the Liberals said, no, we're not going to give you the unredacted documents that's going to prove our involvement in the misuse of this $150 million. And of course, it was a lot more than that amount there. So, for months and months and into the fall of 2024 and into the year of 2025, well, then Trudeau left and nothing was getting done, unless, of course, there was a unanimous vote in Parliament to allow something to pass, and then, in which case it would. But other than that, nothing, no business was happening. Thank God for us, because it ceased all activity on Bill C-63, their then version of the Harms Act, Online Harms Act, their censorship bill, which of course they now want to reintroduce. But yes, so that's a flashback. And of course, nothing has changed since then. In fact, it's gotten worse. In fact, they've hidden even more information. They've gone out of their way to change the rules to hide more information, deleting emails after 30 days, now an order in council by Carney himself, deleting chats after 15 days, changing the regulations that any documentation related to industry, especially pharmaceutical used to be able to be held for 25 years, but now it's only being held for 15 years. And what did Carney do? Well, then he sealed vaccine harm records for 15 years. So then by the time you get to see them, they'll be gone. They'll be deleted. That's how these people work. They work in darkness. They sell you a good story, and then they get reelected, and then they cause more misery. And then they run algorithms that defeat any kind of independent media or podcast from trying to tell anyone the truth. Now let's listen here to the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. As you know, there's 1 million migrants whose visas are going to expire, or sorry, have already expired, and that for some reason the Liberal government, who allowed them into the country unvetted, untracked, have no plan on getting rid of them whatsoever. They just expect them to leave on their own. And there's another 4 million this year. And all their visas are going to expire and work permits. And again, the Liberals have no plan for them as well, apparently. Yes. Apparently, they've let 5 million people into the country that are not residents. And the entire tracking method that we had in place before this government took over in 2015 is now in complete shambles. Complete shambles. Let's listen to this.
Canada. Isn't this a counterproductive measure?
Policies that are, you don't think bringing in millions of people in a very short period of time like that had no impact on housing, even though like major economists and most Canadians' lived experience says otherwise. I'm just asking from a perspective so that we can qualify your comments in a further report, because that seems a little bananas to me.
So
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
The committee is resuming its study on it's continuing its study of Canada's immigration system. I would now like to warmly welcome our witnesses for today's meeting. Thank you for coming in person. As an individual, we have Michael Barutsiski, Professor, University of Toronto, and I'm sorry, I should say your last name perfectly, given the fact I have a Zarovich in my last name. I also want to warmly welcome Stephen Paul Lassini, from the Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant. And then from the Canadian Council of Refugees, we have Gauri Srivasan, who's the co-executive director.
May Trin, who's an entrepreneur, was recently on BNN and noted that tech startups are leaving Canada in favor of doing business in the United States. In fact, she said Canada is like a really good-looking guy you want to date, but for some reason he makes it really difficult for you to be with him. Do you believe the immigration system today enables entrepreneurs to stay in Canada and build businesses?
I don't think it does at all. In my opening remarks, I mentioned a friend of mine, Mustafa. Like I mentioned, he has raised $1 million in private investor capital. He's doing operations in 3 different countries. He's got memorandums of understanding signed, and he's going to have to wait 84 years to get his PR. And yes, he's in Canada right now on an open work permit, but the challenge is the uncertainty for these applicants. We've got, like I said, 500 spots for startup visa applicants, and how it got so out of hand with 43,000 in backlog, according to the minister's transition binder, I just don't.
43,000 backlog. 43,000. A system that was set up to process 500 per year, and of course the Liberals decided to follow their century initiative of inundating Canada with unvetted mass migration. Non-stop flow, big chaos, hose of migrants coming through, unvetted. Come on in, boys. Come on. Yeah, buddy. Woohoo. And then, of course, no follow-through on the impact on everything else in society. The impact on the housing, the impact on healthcare, and of course, the impact on all the other departments that were set up to support the normal influx of migration before the Liberals decided to break it on purpose. On purpose.
Understand how that happened. I just don't understand, like they were asleep at the switch or something.
Thank you. You've also published letters to the minister regarding processing timelines and inconsistency. How would you characterize the current state of the IRCC?
A bit like a lottery, a little bit random. You never really know what you're going to get. Certainly not fair, no transparency, and very limited accountability. That is my statement on the current state of IRCC.
No transparency and no accountability. Sounds like everything liberal. No transparency, no accountability. No transparency, no accountability. No transparency, no accountability. It's the motto of the new Liberal Party.
You've also advocated for a sustainable immigration policy. Do you believe the current liberal immigration policy over the past few years has been sustainable?
No. Particularly in reference to the I will say that the reduction in the temporary resident numbers has actually been effective, cutting out the, let's say, the student fraud, the international student fraud, and the public-private partnerships with DLIs. But what was concerning was the one-time measure in the budget, where they didn't put the number for protected persons, but they put the number for students and economic class, because, well, it's a much smaller number of 33,000 TR to PR. And when you look through the 2024 and 2025 stakeholder consultations and the consultations on express entry, it is obvious what Canadians want. They want to focus on skills, they want to focus on economic class, immigration, and I believe that's why they left it out of the budget.
So just for the record, in your view, has the current government's rapid increase in immigration targets outpaced the actual growth of our housing supply and healthcare infrastructure?
I believe the temporary residents did at some point. Like I mentioned, the current government did really reel that in, and they reeled in the LMIA fraud, which I was quite outspoken about over the last couple of years. And in terms of the permanent numbers, I think the numbers right now are relatively sustainable if they go with 380,000 permanent residents per year in the budget, not 455,000 when you include the special one-time measures.
So one of the phenomenons we've seen, certainly in urban areas across the country, definitely in my riding in the greater Toronto area, in New York region, is youth unemployment. You've spoken about the fraudulent labor market impact assessments, LMIAs. Can you expand on the impact this has on youth unemployment?
Of course. What happens is that employers, when they can bring somebody on a closed a closed work permit based on a low wage LMIA, they have basically a modern day wage slave who has to show up for work every single day, or else they're afraid that they're not going to get to realize their dream of remaining in Canada. And for employers that do pay the minimum wage, they find that these workers are better than Canadians who can just, they have an open work permit essentially, right? They can go work at the next shop, and they're competitive in the market. So this has definitely contributed to it. And like I said, Service Canada has really cracked down on it. So
thank you.
Yeah. Everything they do is on purpose. Everything they do. Well, let's carry on the theme of migration.
Today I wrote to Immigration Minister Lena Diab and Justice Minister Sean Fraser in the spirit of collaboration with a proposal to address comments made this week by British Columbia Premier David Eby. The Premier expressed deep frustrations with Canada's immigration laws as they pertain to non-citizens being convicted of or arrested for having been alleged to have committed serious crimes like extortion and subsequently making asylum claims. The Premier called for Canada's laws to be changed. I and millions of other Canadians agree. Even though the Premier is a New Democrat and I'm a Conservative, there are some policy areas that bridge the political divide. This is one of them. That's why last November, Conservatives proposed an amendment to Bill C-12, which would have updated the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to bar asylum claims from being made by those who have been convicted of serious crimes in Canada.
So, of course, now we've got two problems, right? Well, three problems. We have jobs being taken by temporary foreign workers that should be going to young Canadians or Canadians who want to work part-time at low skilled, low wage jobs on the side. You know, those jobs are not as easily available now because of the temporary foreign worker program. The second problem is, of course, like was mentioned in the prior video, it's slave labor. And apparently the liberals don't have an issue with slave labor, right? That's why they cozy up with China. China that uses slave labor, its products that they now want to bring into Canada through a trade deal. That's right. Liberals don't seem to care about slave labor whatsoever, which is why they're really big on green scam technologies that often use slave labor to extract all the toxic heavy metals required to make them, right? And but no, they don't care about the environment really. They only care about their virtue signaling scams, which is like, oh, everybody come into the country. The country is for everybody. The planet is for everybody. We will save the planet. We will save you. Please come in without vetting them, of course. Now that's the other problem that leads to is that a lot of the unvetted people coming in are not good people. Canada does not have magic dirt that as soon as you get on the ground here and put your feet on it, it magically changes you into a Canadian with Canadian values, morals, and ethics that respects other people, respects the law, and wants to get along with everyone. No, no, there are a lot of people here that want to exploit the complete lack of application of the law by the liberals who are doing this on purpose to completely destroy the country so they can reshape it in their own perverted image. Let's carry on with what is happening criminally because of uncontrolled mass migration by the liberals.
This was a common sense change that would have prevented abuse of Canada's asylum system and deterred non-citizens from avoiding deportation after committing serious crimes. This amendment was unfortunately rejected by the Liberals. In debate on that amendment, we made virtually the same arguments Premier Eby made in his press conference yesterday. Had this amendment carried, the Premier and Canadians would have gotten a signal that the Liberals were ready to modernize Canada's immigration laws to prevent this ludicrous, and that was his word, not mine, abuse of our asylum system. But in spite of the Liberals rejecting this proposal in November, our Conservative caucus is ready to work with the government to expedite legislation that would make this change, should they choose to table it. However, Premier Eby in his comments also suggested that we go further, and I agree. The Premier suggested that we not only seek to bar non-citizens convicted of serious crimes from making refugee claims, but also non-citizens who have active judicial proceedings in Canada for serious crimes as well, like extortion. I believe that this would send a message to non-citizens who now accurately believe that they commit serious crimes and avoid deportation by abusing Canada's asylum system. Additionally, in line with the spirit of Premier Eby's comments, the practice of judges giving leniency to non-citizens convicted of serious crimes to avoid deportation must end. There have been endless and patently egregious cases of non-citizens convicted of serious crimes like sexual assault who have benefited from this practice at the expense of victims and Canada's immigration consensus. That's why Conservatives introduced Bill C-220, which would add one line to the criminal code to end once and for all practice which is not in alignment with the spirit of long-established Canadian law. This bill will be up for a vote in a few short weeks, and I encourage the Liberals to support it. And in order to expedite this much-needed change, Conservative members of the Justice Committee and the Security Committee attempted to amend Bill C-14 to include this one-line change, but it was also voted down by Liberal members. So to re-emphasize, Conservatives are more than happy to work with the government to expedite this bill, as well as any legislation that would bar non-citizens who have been convicted of serious crimes like extortion, but also non-citizens who have active judicial proceedings for serious crimes like extortion from making asylum claims. I'm joined today by many of my shadow cabinet colleagues who have bills and are working in this area, but I'd like to invite our Deputy Leader, Tim Uppal, to talk about his extortion bill as well as the impact that some of these measures are having, the lack of law are having across the country.
Now, of course, all the bills that the Conservatives have brought forward, no matter how common sense they have all been voted against by the Liberals. So they will, of course, vote this down as well, right? Because even in the lower house on Wednesday, they were saying, this is not true. There are laws to keep people from doing that. What you're saying is a lie. Well, they didn't say that. They're not allowed to call the other members liars in the lower house. But this is the same argument that liberals make all the time about everything. But they never follow through on that other part, which is that they don't actually enforce the law. They don't ensure that the law is enforced. They don't ensure that that whoever's funding those lawyers are given the nudge to say, hey, don't prosecute those. They're not allowed to do that. They don't go to the departments that say, hey, you're not allowed to process that claim. That person's not entitled to do that. They don't do any of that. Which is, of course, what the mainstream media will never tell you as well whenever they cover these stories. All right, so let's get into our last little story for this morning.
Reprise du débat, le chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Sorry, this is not the last one.
In a Surrey home and met with the Sassy family. I can see a combination of fear and anger of the sons after they lost their father, a law-abiding Canadian, a successful businessman, a pillar of the community, Darshan Sassy, gunned down, presumably by extortionists. Not long after that, I was at Swift Radio in Surrey, and I looked up in the studio, and staring me in the eye was a bullet hole put there by extortionists who had demanded that the owner pay money to avoid violence. The other day I spoke to a lower mainland British Columbia mother who was paid a visit by police officers warning her that a house on the street has been the subject of extortion threats and that there may be stray bullets flying around the neighborhood, so that some might consider moving their families into the basement. That is to say, not living on the main floor of the home in order to avoid the prospect of a stray bullet flying through the window and killing a family member.
So the last time I even considered anything like that was on deployment. Now, of course, I didn't give that a second thought in Afghanistan because, well, it was more than just stray bullets. It could have been an incoming missile or artillery piece or whatever, with very little warning to try to get to shelter. Basically, it's just a siren going off and you hit the deck and you wait for a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds and then you head off to your shelter and you're sitting there, until you get the all clear. But prior to that, the closest I would say to experiencing that would have been in Bosnia. Yeah, on the 3 tours I did there, where, yeah, stray bullets at any time, anywhere, because the land was lawless, pretty well lawless. Gunfire going off at all the times, accidental grenade going off here and there in the background. Even though we were in a peace mode at the time, there was still a lot of, a lot of people running around because there's not that much law. Same thing that is happening in Canada. If you don't enforce the law, criminals get the green light to do more crime. And that's what they've been doing. And this was not happening before 2015, folks. This is a liberal phenomenon. All right, well, let's get into some Stephanie Kuzy here.
Or Santa Claus. The names on the lists are never released. Society has come to the moral place where those who have done wrong are protected. Tax cheaters, offenders living amongst us, parliamentarians who have worked negatively with foreign governments. Everything is withheld in the false veil of privacy. Why is it that government wants to track the information of millions of average Canadians on their laptops, but won't go after those who go against one of the most basic social contracts of society?
Right, so that's the big harm about coming into digital ID, which they want to push, that they're trying in so many different venues to bring in Oh, it'll make it so much easier. Oh, it'll give you free access. Oh, it's for your safety. Oh, yes, always for the safety. Did you know that all the information of all the gun owners was recently accidentally hacked and released? The government cannot be trusted with your information. The government's already been caught selling your information for their own profit without telling you. And then, of course, it was, released as a side story, buried in page 3, and then, their liberal paid media just moves on from there and you never hear about it again. So that whenever they bring up things like digital ID for your safety, they never talk about the fact that they are completely incompetent when it comes to your data. They should not have that kind of control. Again, we've moved too far away from managing the roads and collecting the garbage to now requiring ID to get your garbage to the garbage truck. I think I'm not exaggerating. That's where it's going. That's the entire social credit score, where they will control you from cradle to grave, and they will do it through digital ID. But they don't really care that they don't have any understanding of how software works, how data centers work, how security works, because they violate security on a regular basis. Do we have to talk about the failed OAS, old age security, transition to the new software system that was supposed to cost 1.3 billion that is now going to cost an additional $5 billion on top of that? And it still doesn't work, where there's over 86,000 seniors that are not getting their checks. So we expect to hear about that this afternoon on the no answer period as we cover the question period once again, of which we will release another third video on that this weekend, covering all the times that keep asking the questions, all the same tired responses, and still the problems are not getting resolved because liberals are incompetent, purposefully at times, but on a regular basis, incompetent.
Here we have a solution in Bill C-230. In recent years, CRA has been waiving debts to government owing. Last year, the government waived the following debts: $4.7 billion in write-offs, $10.9 billion in forgiveness, $0.4 billion in remissions, and $2.6 billion in waivers, for a total of $18.4 billion. Write-offs and waivers for taxes owed are done in secret because of privacy provisions under the Income Tax Act. So while the CRA is pursuing small businesses and ordinary Canadians for minor amounts owing to government, it is writing off debts owing to government by corporate entities in record amount. Canadians deserve to know which corporations are benefiting from CRA's decision not to collect debts to government. The solution in C-230 is to create a public registry that would require Treasury Board to publish annually a list of corporate entities that have debts owing to governments, forgiven, written off, waived, if that amount exceeds $1 million. And $1 million is a lot of money. It's not forgetting to pay back a 20 or I'll get lunch next time. In 2023-2024, 11 companies received $1.2 billion in write-offs combined. The 11 companies account for nearly a quarter of the $4.9 billion in write-offs approved in fiscal year 2023-2024. But which are these companies? Right now, we don't know. But how would Canadians feel if they were publicly traded companies, posting profits or even record profits? What if Brookfield was one of those companies? Right now, we don't know. Why should big corporations get enormous debt write-offs when they target the little guy for significantly smaller amounts? I have from a constituent. They're claiming I owe them $126 from a payroll account more than 15 years ago. From another constituent. CRA has been holding up my return for months with no proper timetable for a return. And meanwhile, they've sent me off to collections, causing me not only a large amount of stress and anxiety, but also causing me serious financial strain in that I have had to take loans, and pay bills to support payments which would have been covered by my return. I have another constituent who is being withheld money from his mother's death benefit due to CRA delays.
And it just goes on and on and on. Now, of course, those on the left and those that support liberals, one of their talking points is constantly referring to the conservatives as being in the pockets of big industry, of big tech, of big this, big that, big industry. Well, meanwhile, as you can see, it is the liberals and their elitist friends who are hiding all this information from those very companies that they're just handing out tons of your money willy-nilly to them by not making them pay their taxes. And so we don't know who's getting debt forgiven by the liberals. We don't know who's in the bag of the liberals. We don't know where most of the money the liberals are sending or spending. We don't know. We don't know because liberals work in the dark. They hide everything. And then we don't know because the press is purchased by the liberal media, sorry, the liberal media, the liberals themselves through the QCJO incentives, supporting their press, their media, their staff by 27 to 30%. Sorry, 27 to 30 grand each through the, do I have it right here? Yes, to do. Best Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization. And the only people that can approve this are the ones that are friendly to the liberals, the friendly media, right? So in order to continue to get their tax credits, they have to continue to be friendly to the liberals so that you will never hear a lot of this stuff reported on mainstream media because, well, it's not in their best interest because they're part of the criminal gang that's taking control of Canada, the criminal cartel known as the Liberal Party, using other people's money to bribe everyone to go after their political opponents. And of course, things we still have not heard what their intent is on the latest being found guilty of illegally enacting the Emergencies Act against civilians to use violence to crush peaceful protests. We can only assume that they will use it again, and they intend to, by appealing that so that they can win that. Or maybe they might just hang on to it and not appeal it and call an election at the time so they can just say, as part of their narrative in the next election, oh no, that's still before the courts. You can't tell us that blah, 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 right? Nothing about them is truthful. But, how do you convince people that are completely in the tank for the liberals that have been completely brainwashed because they have no real love of their fellow man? They don't want to love their fellow man. In fact, they want to run their days on hate because they feel that they are being oppressed by those that they are being told to, which is the mainstream media, changing their minds into thinking that Americans are oppressing them, that Trump is the bad man, and everything that is happening in Canada, that everything bad going on in Canada right now is because of Trump. And that's what the liberal supporters honestly believe, because that's what they've been brainwashed into thinking. But meanwhile, the liberals have been in charge of Canada for the past 11 years. Yeah, coming up on 11 years. And Trump's not the prime minister. In fact, Trump doesn't think Canada on a regular basis. Most Americans don't. Most Americans don't give a fig about us. Those in the northern states do. But on the most part, we're not even on their radar. The only people interested in Canada are the poor slobs like me that are living in it right now under this oppressive liberal regime that slowly wants to take everything from us, give it to their friends, and ensure that they have control over this scrap of land forever and ever as the natural ruling party. Well, I hope that got your blood pumping for today. We will see you tomorrow at Blazing Kefir Fridays at 9 a.m. And then we'll be back with Second Breakfast Saturday morning. Thank you all for coming out. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.